You won't believe what's just happened. Rachel Reeves, the same Chancellor who hammered working-class families with punishing inheritance tax rules, has just had her own family fortune seized by the Supreme Court. Yes, the very architect of the most brutal tax raids in modern British history has been caught red-handed in her own twisted inheritance scandal. The hypocrisy is mind-blowing. She stood before the country, demanding fairness, justice, and sacrifice, while secretly hiding millions from the very tax rules she forced on us all. And now, the Supreme Court has stepped in and torn her financial empire apart. This is not just a scandal, it's a political earthquake that's shaking Labour to its core. Rachel Reeves thought she could get away with it. She thought the cameras would never catch her, that the public would stay distracted, that the legal system wouldn't dare touch someone sitting in the Chancellor's chair. But she was wrong. Very wrong. In a stunning move just minutes ago, the UK Supreme Court issued a full seizure order on Reeves's inherited estate, citing deliberate, systematic avoidance of tax laws that she herself imposed on millions of ordinary British citizens. This isn't some tabloid rumour. It's a formal legal intervention at the highest level of the British judiciary, and it's exposing a level of corruption that has the entire country in disbelief. While Rachel Reeves lectured the country about tightening belts and making sacrifices, she was behind closed doors orchestrating one of the most elaborate tax avoidance strategies the nation has ever seen. She froze inheritance thresholds, she targeted modest pensions, and she taxed grieving families into financial ruin. Her policies dragged tens of thousands of average homes into the death tax net. Families earning £25,000 a year, living in ordinary homes and with modest retirement savings, were suddenly staring down enormous inheritance tax bills. And all the while, Reeves was busy moving her own assets offshore, funneling property into shell trusts, and rerouting wealth through legal loopholes that she told the rest of us didn't exist. The hypocrisy is staggering. Reeves, Labour's so-called champion of tax justice, was exposed by a whistleblower inside one of the firms managing her family estate. Documents revealed secret transfers made shortly after she announced her controversial tax reforms. Transfers designed to hide the value of inherited properties, pensions, and shares from public taxation. The leaked documents were handed to legal authorities, and what they uncovered was damning. Not only had Reeves knowingly structured her inheritance to avoid the same tax burdens she imposed on others, but she did so while using official Treasury briefings to argue that only the richest would pay more. That was a lie. Under Reeves's new inheritance tax rules, even families with average incomes and basic pension pots were dragged into the firing line. She promised fairness and transparency, but acted with deceit and double standards. The Supreme Court's intervention is a direct response to this betrayal. In their scathing summary, the justices wrote that Reeves's estate arrangements were cynically designed to exploit legal grey zones she had the power to close. They added that public officials cannot be allowed to write the law for others while breaking it themselves. And with that, the court ordered a full freeze and investigation into her estate, signalling the start of what could become the most devastating political fallout of the year. But this is more than just a personal scandal for Reeves. It's a ticking time bomb for the Labour Party. Their top economic figure, the woman behind the party's fiscal message, has now been publicly humiliated for doing exactly what Labour claimed to fight against, rigging the system in favour of the elite. The difference? Reeves didn't just benefit from the system, she designed it. And now her credibility is shattered. She built an entire tax policy around the idea that the wealthy needed to pay more to make things fairer. Yet when it was her turn, she refused to play by the same rules. What makes this betrayal even more venomous is that ordinary people are already suffering under the weight of her policies. Since Reeves froze the inheritance tax threshold at £325,000, despite years of inflation and skyrocketing house prices, thousands of families have been caught in a trap. A modest home in outer London or Manchester, once considered middle class, now pushes families over the threshold. Add a small pension pot, and you're looking at a 40% death tax. It's a hammer blow to families trying to do the right thing. Those who saved, worked hard, bought property, and invested in pensions. Instead of being rewarded, they've been punished. And while this disaster unfolded for millions of citizens, Reeves was busy protecting her own financial interests. It's not just immoral, it's disgraceful. The court's decision to seize her assets is a turning point. It's a message that no one, not even the Chancellor, is above the law. The judgment is already sending shockwaves through Westminster, and Labour MPs are scrambling to distance themselves from the fallout. But the damage is done. The mask has slipped, and the public now sees exactly who Rachel Reeves really is. A politician who told the country to suffer while secretly shielding herself from the pain she created. Let's be clear, this isn't a minor mistake. This was cold, calculated hypocrisy. The court described her schemes as deliberate and methodical. That means this wasn't accidental. It wasn't sloppy paperwork or misunderstood rules. It was a conscious plan to dodge tax obligations, while she stood in front of Parliament and claimed to be holding the wealthy accountable. And the people, they're furious. The internet is exploding with outrage. Social media is ablaze with demands for resignation, investigations, and even prosecution. Reeves's political future now hangs by a thread, and Labour's integrity is sinking fast. The Supreme Court's ruling has ignited a political firestorm that shows no signs of cooling. Rachel Reeves, once touted as the intellectual backbone of Labour's economic vision, now stands disgraced and isolated. The sheer magnitude of the court's findings, systematic evasion, strategic exploitation, and deliberate concealment, has not only decimated her personal credibility, but has exposed deep rot within Labour's leadership culture. What makes this more than a personal scandal is the timing. With a general election looming and public anger simmering over cost of living pressures, this revelation could not have struck at a more precarious moment for Keir Starmer's party. The optics are catastrophic. A Labour Chancellor, champion of working families, revealed to be architect and beneficiary of a secret tax shelter empire. Political opponents have wasted no time in weaponising the scandal. Conservative MPs have launched an all-out offensive, demanding Reeves be removed from her post immediately and subjected to a full parliamentary inquiry. Reform UK, riding a wave of populist sentiment, has accused Labour of enacting a two-tier justice system, one for ordinary citizens and another for the elite who hold office. Their leader, Nigel Farage, stated publicly that the British people are fed up with ruling class liars who preach sacrifice while living in luxury. Even within Labour's own ranks, the damage is clear. Several backbench MPs have reportedly broken ranks, expressing fury over Reeves's actions and warning that unless Starmer acts swiftly, the party's electoral prospects will implode under the weight of public betrayal. The core issue driving national fury isn't just legal, it's moral. The very foundation of Reeves's tax policy was fairness. She publicly claimed that her inheritance tax hikes would only impact the top 5% of estates, a claim now discredited. The Treasury's own projections revealed that, under her rules, more than 121,000 additional families a year would be pulled into the tax net. Most of these families were not ultra-wealthy oligarchs, but middle-class citizens, nurses, teachers, shop owners, people who built modest estates through decades of hard work and prudent saving. The revised policy meant that families with average homes and pensions would suddenly face bills as high as £170,000 upon the death of a loved one. At the same time, Reeves and her team continue to argue that nothing changes for the average household. That lie is now fully exposed. What makes this betrayal even more insidious is the technical detail behind Reeves's own scheme. Legal documents and leaked financial disclosures show that Reeves began shielding her assets months before introducing her controversial tax package. She established offshore accounts in jurisdictions known for tax leniency, created layered shell trusts under family members' names, and transferred pension entitlements into private custodial vehicles specifically structured to avoid being counted within her taxable estate. These are not actions taken in ignorance or by accident. They require financial planning, legal counsel, and deep knowledge of loopholes, exactly the kind of insider advantage Reeves had access to as Chancellor. Her use of these tools while simultaneously closing off options for regular families reeks of elitist duplicity. The public response has been explosive. Protests have erupted outside Parliament and Labour constituency offices across the UK. Social media is flooded with angry videos from ordinary people telling their inheritance tax horror stories. Some who lost family homes, others who had to sell off cherished heirlooms or dissolve small businesses just to pay death duties. One viral video showed a tearful mother in Birmingham, describing how her deceased husband's modest pension and the family's semi-detached home triggered an unexpected £110,000 tax bill. "We did everything right," she said, "and now I have to sell our home." Meanwhile, Reeves kept everything. She lied to us. Major newspapers have splashed damning headlines across their front pages. "Tax Queen caught in her own trap," screamed the Daily Mail. "Labour's double standard exposed," blared the Telegraph. Even traditionally left-leaning outlets like The Guardian and The Independent have not spared Reeves, with columnists calling her behaviour indefensible, disqualifying, and a fatal blow to Labour's moral claim on economic justice. Editorials now ask how Labour can ever again speak of fairness and transparency while Reeves remains in office. Meanwhile, opposition parties have demanded emergency debates in Parliament and called for the establishment of a special committee to review all financial dealings of serving ministers, past and present. Keir Starmer is facing the biggest test of his leadership. Thus far, his response has been cautious, perhaps too cautious. His initial statement, released just hours after the ruling, acknowledged serious concerns and promised to review all relevant details before making further comment. But critics say this isn't enough. Pressure is mounting for Starmer to sack Reeves or at the very least suspend her from her ministerial duties pending a full investigation. Senior political analysts are warning that failing to act decisively could damage Labour's reputation beyond repair. One Labour insider was quoted anonymously saying, "If Starmer doesn't cut her loose now, we'll all go down with her. This isn't salvageable. She's finished." The wider implications of the Reeves scandal reach beyond one minister or one party. It has reignited the national conversation about inheritance tax itself, its fairness, its limits, and its place in modern Britain. Already, polls show a dramatic shift in public opinion, with support for Reeves's inheritance reforms plummeting. A recent YouGov Snap poll found that 68% of respondents now believe inheritance tax is unfair, up from 42% just 3 months ago. Political commentators suggest that this could be a watershed moment in British fiscal policy, pushing the next government, regardless of party, toward major tax reform. Some are even predicting the total abolition of inheritance tax as a campaign pledge in the next general election, riding a wave of populist anger now inflamed by Reeves's downfall. What's undeniable is this. Rachel Reeves has turned into a cautionary tale, a politician who rose on the promise of fairness, only to fall through her own greed. Her collapse is not just a political spectacle, it's a warning. The British public is no longer tolerating a ruling class that lives by different rules. The hypocrisy has been laid bare, the consequences are unfolding in real time, and the ripple effect across Westminster will be felt for months, if not years. Reeves may survive politically for now, but the trust she once commanded is gone. And in British politics, when trust dies, so too does power. The fallout from Rachel Reeves's inheritance tax scandal has not only rocked the political establishment, but has also sparked a fierce national debate about fairness, accountability, and the true cost of government policies on everyday Britons. The stark contrast between Reeves's personal financial manoeuvres and the harsh tax burdens imposed on millions of families has reignited widespread distrust in Westminster. Ordinary citizens, many struggling to make ends meet, are demanding transparency and justice. Public opinion polls now show a sharp decline in confidence toward politicians and institutions, with over 65% of respondents believing that tax laws are rigged to protect the wealthy and powerful, while punishing the working class. This growing cynicism fuels a broader crisis of legitimacy that threatens to undermine democratic governance itself. At the heart of this outrage is the principle of fairness, an ideal that politicians routinely invoke, but, as the Reeves case demonstrates, fail to uphold in practice. The inheritance tax system, originally designed to prevent the concentration of wealth across generations and fund essential public services, has morphed into a tool that disproportionately targets ordinary savers while allowing elites to exploit complex loopholes. Reeves's actions have put this hypocrisy on full display. By manipulating offshore trusts and shell companies, she shielded her wealth while millions face punitive bills on modest estates. This blatant double standard is not just a political scandal. It is a moral crisis that has ignited protests and calls for comprehensive reform. Legal experts have weighed in, describing the Supreme Court ruling as a landmark moment that sets a precedent for holding public figures accountable for tax avoidance. The judgment clearly states that deliberate schemes to circumvent tax laws, especially by those in positions of power, will no longer be tolerated. This has emboldened campaigners and watchdog groups, who are now pushing for stricter regulations on trusts, greater transparency in asset disclosures, and harsher penalties for tax evasion. Some voices in Parliament advocate for creating a special independent commission tasked with investigating all ministers' financial affairs, aiming to restore public trust and prevent future abuses. Economically, the scandal threatens to worsen an already fragile environment. Small business owners and family-run enterprises are expressing growing concerns about the long-term effects of punitive inheritance taxes combined with economic uncertainty. Many admit to reconsidering investment and succession plans, fearing that excessive taxation could force the sale or dissolution of businesses, resulting in job losses and weakened local economies. The message is clear. If tax policies continue to penalise those striving to build and pass on wealth responsibly, economic growth and social mobility will suffer. This unintended consequence of Reeves's approach has alarmed economists who warn that Britain risks falling further behind other developed nations in productivity and innovation. The political repercussions are equally profound. Labour's core voter base, traditionally working-class families who value fairness and opportunity, feels deeply alienated. Grassroots activists and party members are demanding accountability, calling for leadership changes and a full internal review of policy-making processes. The leadership's failure to act swiftly has led to accusations of protecting the establishment rather than the electorate. As divisions widen within Labour, rival parties are capitalising on the chaos, promising a new era of honesty and reform. This realignment could dramatically reshape the UK's political landscape, with voter loyalties shifting and increased volatility expected in upcoming elections. In the media, the scandal dominates headlines, with sustained coverage highlighting both the personal and systemic implications. Investigative journalists continue to uncover further details about Reeves's financial arrangements and similar cases among other officials. Public interest shows no sign of waning, driven by a collective demand for justice and an end to the pervasive culture of impunity. Editorials from across the spectrum emphasise the urgent need for reform and stronger ethical standards in public office. In summary, the Rachel Reeves inheritance tax saga is more than a personal scandal. It is a catalyst for national reflection on the state of British politics and taxation. The crisis exposes deep fractures in public trust and raises pressing questions about how wealth, power, and responsibility are managed at the highest levels. With calls for transparency growing louder and political pressure mounting, the coming months will be critical in determining whether the UK can rebuild confidence in its institutions or descend further into division and disillusionment. If you found this video revealing, don't stay silent, share it with your friends and family. We need to expose these double standards and demand real accountability from those in power. Comment below with your thoughts on this scandal and tell us how it affects you. Most importantly, make sure you subscribe to the Britain Nexus channel so you never miss a crucial update on stories that matter to you. Together, we can hold the elite to account and fight for a fairer Britain.